Hello everyone. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today reviewing the Rubrics feature in Blackboard. Many of us use Rubrics to more clearly convey our expectations for assignments to our students, and usually when this is done it's in a Word document. If it's in a face-to-face class, we just type out or write out our responses and our score, hand it back to our students. If it's done in Blackboard, typically in the past I've had to copy and paste the different rubric items into the feedback to users. You might actually have it in a Word document and then save a different version for every student and attach that file. And while it's really helpful for students to know that, it's incredibly cumbersome as an instructor. Now, Blackboard has an interactive rubrics feature that we've added since the summer of 2011, but I think a lot of people, sometimes we tend to forget that these tools are here. So just kind of as a reminder, I wanted to demo it from not just the instructor viewpoint, but the student viewpoint as well, so you get a really clear idea of the kind of investment that it's going to take to create one, and also what students see when they log in, and then you can really make a judgment about whether or not you want to do this for certain assignments, for all assignments, and you have a good idea of how much time it's going to take for you to do that. So in this demo course, I'll go ahead and show you first where the rubrics are actually located. If I go down into the control panel and click on Course Tools, toward the bottom I can see my rubrics are attached here. Now in this demo course I have several that are listed here, and you can see that there's a name attached and then a description. So just to give you a little bit of background here, these were actually done for a Computers for Educators class that I taught during the summer, and I use rubrics for everything, especially interactive rubrics, because it saved me so much time. But I did want to explain to you here that the description, you can see that it's got my name and a lot of information that if it's just my class, I don't really need that. I know what the final portfolio is for. I know what the final project is for. But these were all copied into this demo course from the Teaching Exchange. So if you look in the same area in the Fontbonne Teaching Exchange site, you will see all of these listed. I do provide the description there so you understand the context of it, what it was used for, who submitted it in case anybody has any questions. And you can see also there's one down here from another user at a community college who was a Blackboard exemplary course winner. Blackboard community members also share their rubrics, and so any ones that I think are pretty good, I went ahead and downloaded into the Exchange site as well. So you're going to see these descriptions. That's great when I take that from the Exchange, put it into my own course, but then when I put it into my own course, you usually want to tweak it and make it your own and make it fit your objectives really clearly. One of the things I would encourage you to do when you do that is you will see these descriptions here. Really go in and either delete them or modify them, because your students can see this description, as I'll show you. I'll go ahead and leave this as is, but just to explain to you that this information may or may not be appropriate for your students to see. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay, so these are where my rubrics are actually housed, but as we know, if it's in the control panel, students can't see it. I have to link it to my content. So if I go into course content, and I have an example assignment here, so I'm going to go ahead and edit this assignment. And this is the view I'm going to have whether the assignment is brand new, I'm just starting to create it, or if I go back in and edit it and attach my rubric to it. So right now I have it set to be 100 points and all of my other settings are fine. I want to go ahead and add my rubric here, and I can select it from my list. You can create your own, I should point out here. You can create your own rubric from this screen if you choose, but one of the things I would encourage you to do is, again, check that Exchange first. It's a lot easier to import that into your class, tweak it, figure out how it makes sense for you, make your changes, and then submit it. You can, I would encourage everyone to learn how to create a new rubric, and especially if it's an unusual assignment that no one really does, then it may just be easier for you, but a lot of times it's easier just to go with what somebody else has done and then tweak it and modify it. So when I go into the Select Rubrics area, I can see that I've got my descriptions here, I've got my final project. All I have to do is click. I know that I'll just go ahead and say that the final project is the rubric I want to use. If I need to make changes to my rubric at all, I have to do that through the control panel. I can't do it in this step. So if I click Submit, it says, is it okay to make the points in the rubric match the total points possible? You always want to make sure that that's clicked OK. Now, one of the things that's quirky in here and really drives me crazy is that for some reason, when we add rubrics to assignments, it's defaulted to not show to students. And I can't think of why you would add a rubric and not. I mean, I'm sure there are reasons why. But anyway, just remember that you will need to go in and change that to yes with rubric scores or yes without rubric scores. In this case, I definitely want them to see the scores. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And I got to scroll down and hit submit, otherwise these changes don't take place. And now my rubric is actually attached to this assignment. So now let's go in and see what the students see when they go in and submit the assignment. Okay, so as a student, I need to go into my course content to access my assignment. And I can see my example assignment here and the directions, but if I click on the title, then I can go ahead and see the title, the instructions that I need, the due date if that's already attached, but it also has this points possible listing. And so as soon as this is usually what they're looking for, is how many points is this thing actually worth. They can't miss it. Right next to it, if the rubric has been attached, they see a view rubric icon. They click that, and then as a student, this is what I can see. So here there's no question, okay, and you can just ignore these little icons here. That's just another program that I have. You won't see that in yours. So when students go in, they can see that, okay, this is novice, competent, and proficient criteria, and I also had the things I'm being judged on are relevance of the subject, the presentation communication, application and insight, and each one of these has a different point range. Now, you can create this rubric any way you like. Everything in here is customizable. Whether or not you just want one point, if you want this to just be 40 and this just be 30 or whatever. I have point ranges for mine, but you certainly don't have to. You can have different criteria, letter grades, they're just anything on here is customizable. I have typically just 3 general levels, but you could have 6 or 7 if you wanted to. I have 3 different sets of criteria, but there are other assignments where I have 5. So it really just depends on what makes sense for you. As a student, though, I'm looking in here and I can see, hopefully I'm not looking at these 2. Hopefully I'm shooting for this area right over here. I want to figure out how can I be proficient in relevance of the subject, my presentation communication, and the application and insight. And so when I read through this description, I can see things like my presentation not only explained the tool or issue, but provided unique insight into its use. The presenter demonstrated keen insight into strengths and weaknesses of the tool, possible future complications. So this is kind of my description of, wow, this was a phenomenal assignment. You could not have done any better description here. So hopefully as a student, that's what I'm looking at and not, okay, how can I just get to competent? So, but it does provide a lot of detail in these so that I know as a student exactly what I'm shooting for. So now there's no question. I can either attach a file if it's a lengthy assignment, which these usually are. I'll go ahead and attach it, but for these purposes I'm just going to go ahead and put my submission here. If they type it into their submission box, then that's where they would do that. And as a student, I'm going to go ahead and click submit. I know that we're all good now. It says, okay, I'm all good. And now we can go back and see the instructor view after the student has submitted it. Okay, so as the instructor, I know that my deadline has passed and I should have everybody's grades by now. So if I look on my grade center, then I can go ahead and see that the student has submitted this example assignment. And I want to go ahead and go to this particular attempt and see what they submitted. Now, when I am looking at this particular section of it, I can see that there are lots of different, the assignment is, remember I just typed in my submission here, so you're not going to see a form, but if I did have an actual paper document, I'd go ahead and open it up from here. I can review it, I can see what the criteria are, and now I'm ready to grade it. So if I go into this number 3, grade the current attempt, again, before I could either copy and I could type in my grade, copy and paste into the feedback to user, or I could attach the file with their name on it and all of the criteria. It takes a really long time for me to do that. So from here, all I got to do is click on View Rubric. And I can see that, let's say for example, I have my student's assignment, over on this side of my screen, and I can just kind of compare what they're doing. And I can say the relevance of their subject, yeah, I would say in general that was proficient. And their presentation communication, they knew what they were talking about, but they weren't really all that clear. They could have been better, but their application and insight was really good. They really addressed possible future complications. They really thought this thing out. Now, it's important to note here that because I have point range, it automatically goes to the center. My point range is between 30 and 40 for this assignment, so maybe for the relevance of the subject, I would say, well, it was definitely what I would consider proficient, but maybe not top-notch proficient. So I'm going to give that a 32 instead. And if I want to explain further why I think that is, then I can go ahead and type that in here. That's the other important component of this, is that you can provide feedback. With the presentation communication, we said that really wasn't all that phenomenal. 13 I think is fine. It's probably right in mid-range. But here I want them to know that they were mumbling a lot. Okay. Now, as a teacher, you have to learn how to present and communicate effectively. And so I want to make sure that they know that, mumbling a lot and speaking with your face to the board is really not the way you want to go. And so that provides just a little more of an explanation beyond what I have here. And then finally, in my last application and insight, I want to say, oh, you really addressed these future complications, great projections, let's say. Based on, I could provide a lot of information there. But if I wanted to explain something, this is a pretty good explanation for why they fell into proficient range. But if I feel that there was something very particular to that student's presentation that would help them even further, it takes me just a few seconds to jot down a couple of notes. You can see that their raw total already comes up here. If for some reason you do want to change that, you can. In the feedback area, this is where you can provide sort of overall feedback. But remember, with this rubric, they're already getting an awful lot here, so it's probably not necessary in most cases. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And now the student score is automatically there, their feedback is automatically there, and all I need to do is hit Submit. So you saw how long that took. Really didn't take all that long. So if I go back as a student, then we'll show what the student can see after you have already submitted their work. Okay, now as a student, I know that all the work has been graded, and so I just need to go into my grades. And I can see right here on the example assignment, I got an 83. And if I want to find out exactly why, I can just go ahead and click on View Rubric. And now in this rubric detail, remember, this is the student view. So this is kind of what they're saying. And so as I scroll down, I can see very clearly that there is the proficient, competent, and novice. This is exactly what I saw in the student view before I submitted the assignment. So I knew from the very beginning what all of this was going to be about. So I can see that I scored a 32 within my range of a 30 to a 40 point value. And my presentation communication was a 13. And maybe as a student, I'm reading through this and I say, well, I thought I did that. Well, my feedback additionally here says, you're mumbling a lot, you're speaking toward the board, make sure that you're not doing that. That provides a little bit of an extra personal connection, a little bit of extra guidance for me as a student. And then for my application and insight, I can see I scored on the upper end here, and I can say great projections. If there was something additionally that the instructor wanted to provide as far as how my particular project went, then I would be able to see that. So you can see here that they're going to see the generic feedback, but they also see those extra notes that you can attach onto there. Maybe that's relevant for you, maybe it's not, but just to give you an idea that this is what the student sees. Now remember when I talked about these rubrics coming over from the exchange, well, I can see that here there's a description. It says it's submitted by Amy Peach, it's developed from computer educators. So it's got the description that was in the exchange. This is from the student view. The student can see that description. So this is why I encourage you to go in and either delete it or provide something that is relevant for your students so that they're not confused by it. Okay? And then as a student, I click Edit, and if there are ever any questions or concerns, I know I can go right back to it and check through the rubric. Remember with all of these that they can be saved in your master, they can be saved in live courses and moved from semester to semester and modified and tweaked in any way that you choose, and it can save you a great deal of time. If you get stuck or you have any questions or you're not entirely sure how to move things over from the Exchange, just give me a holler.